Hey there, everybody. So good to see all of you tonight. Yeah, let's do it. Let's have another great late night show. I'm going to bring on the opening music, the old opening music that we start with. Here we go. Here we go.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, 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 everyone. Hear ye, hear ye. I proclaimeth that the live stream shall begin. Is that a weird thing? I don't know why I felt a need to say that. I don't know why that came into my mind, but there you go. There you go. Welcome, everybody. Glad to see you. We're going to have yet another great late night conversation, the same way we always do. Now, if you got a question for the second half of the show, best way to send it is still to go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin, though we do take super chats, right? Super chats work also. We are monetized. We take super chats. In addition to buymeacoffee.com, super chats, you can cash at me at Caleb Maupin 22. You can do Rumble rants. We take whatever works, whatever we can get. It is appreciated. And questions are always appreciated. That is what makes the second half of the show so exciting, is me answering your questions. So send questions for the second half of the show. In terms of announcements, the big announcement is the Center for Political Innovation, my organization that I'm proud to be a member of. We have members all across the country. We are having a national training program on August 12th through 19th. It's called From a Drop to an Ocean, One Can Join a Movement. It'll be in the Chicago area. It's going to be really, really awesome. So I hope that you will register to be a participant. It's going to be really, really great. It's coming up. The Center for Political Innovation is a tremendous organization. There's the link if you want to register for our national training program. Membership in CPI is rising. I checked it last week. New members pouring in, and we're doing really great stuff. So, I hope you will come to our national 7-day training program, August 12th through the 19th. And of course, since we're doing this, we'll put on, this is CPI. Good stuff, folks. The Center for Political Innovation is a great group dedicated to anti-imperialist activism. I hope that you get involved and become a member, because we do really good stuff. We're always doing great activism, and it's a great community of people. I was meeting with members today. I talked with one of our members in New York. I talked with one of our members around the country. We're always doing great stuff. I mean, there's not a day that goes by I'm not checking in with CPI members about different stuff that we are doing. And this morning I had a great chat with Garland Nixon. Garland Nixon He and I had a great conversation this morning that was live streamed on this channel, and it was about my new book. This book is designed so that you can get it all in one volume. It is almost 500 pages. It's 488 pages. And it's tremendous stuff. It's years and years of speeches and presentations that I have given over the years. My conversation with Putin is in there. The speech I gave to oil workers in Brazil is in there. Articles that I have written that were republished in the daily newspaper of North Korea. A really great introduction written by our member Noah Shank. Early stuff that I wrote during the Occupy Wall Street protests. Stuff about Rosa Luxemburg. It's all in there. 488 pages is not a small amount of stuff, and a lot of pictures, a lot of graphics. That's why it took me. I meant to put this out a couple weeks ago, but I wanted to make sure we had appropriate graphics. And so, I've got stuff in there about Mao and the Chinese Revolution, made sure we had great graphics of that, made sure we had pictures of CPI and the great stuff we've done. There's a lot about the Uhuru case in there. There's, the legendary CPI conference that we had, that was right after Uhuru got raided. My speech from there is in there, a lot of pictures of that conference. And I mean, there's just a lot in this book. It is a massive volume, 488 pages, lots and lots of graphics, lots of kind of specially made graphics. I don't want to give them all away because I feel like that would disappoint the people that are going to buy the book, but I want to show you some of them. I can show you some of them, right? That'll be okay, right? If I show you some of the graphics that we made, for example, I have a speech in the book where I quote Mao and his report on an investigation to the peasant uprisings in Hunan province. So I had to make a graphic. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. There's Mao Zedong and there's the peasants. In a very short time in China's southern and southern provinces, several 100 million peasants will rise like a mighty storm, like a hurricane, so swift and violent that no power, however great, will be able to hold it back. That's an awesome graphic. Wouldn't you like to buy a book that has that graphic in it? I know I sure would. That's why I wrote it. But I had fun with this. I have wanted to do a book like this for a long time. That, it has my lecture about Venezuela I gave at St. John's University. It's got a lot of content in it. And it's got stuff from our members, and it's got, it talks about when we were featured in Newsweek, and it's just got, it's a very, very inclusive. Like, I have a graphic of the words that Russian President Putin said to me when I spoke to him. We got a nice graphic there. There's Putin with Kim Jong-un and all of that. I mean, it's got a lot in it. And so I'm looking forward to going around. I want to get on every show as possible to talk about the book. So that's going to be very, very, very important. And so, Lei Fang was your favorite Chi-Com. Is Chi-Com an offensive term? So Chi-Com is short for Chinese Communist. And at one point, it was a term used by the U.S. military in like the 50s and 60s. And I think Rush Limbaugh, the conservative, he used the term. He talked about the Chi-Coms. But generally, I have understood that to be derogatory. It's kind of offensive. I remember seeing it. I was reading a book and not knowing what it was. And I thought it was a different word. I thought it was one word. I thought it was Chicom. And it was referring to, I was reading a book about, communist groups in America and how the FBI was stalking them. And it referred to somebody as being a Chicom agent. Well, it was a Chi-Com agent, meaning he was an agent of the Chinese communists. But I thought it was like a Chicom agent. What's a Chicom agent? I didn't know what it was. Alex Jones uses it a lot. That's interesting. Alex Jones is all over the place. And, sometimes there were moments where Alex Jones did an amazing job. On the war on Libya, I have never seen somebody stand up, and he stood up for Gaddafi. He was in Libya with Cynthia McKinney. He was talking about Gaddafi's Libya as being an example of socialism working, and he went to the shooting range with the revolutionary militias that were defending Gaddafi. And Alex Jones, every so often, he does a really good job, but a lot of his stuff is, for one, he buys into this far right narrative that everything bad is communism, right? Even though the U.S. government goes around overthrowing communist governments. So if you're if you're against the U.S. government, why would you echo their narrative about communism and socialism? Then a lot of it's very pessimistic. The thing about DMT and AI and all the technology coming to us from demons. And I don't know. I listened to his really long interview that he did with Jimmy Dore, and some of the opening stuff was insightful, and then some of the rest of it was awful. And I also noticed that there are Trumper talking points slipped in there, claiming that Joe Biden gave money to Iran and was somehow responsible for October 7th, which is, Joe Biden unfroze. There was a bank account of Iran in South Korea that Joe Biden had frozen, had ordered the South Korean government to freeze. And then as part of negotiations, they unfroze it. And to say that that was Joe Biden giving money to Iran, and that then Iran used that money to make Hamas do October 7th, that is just such a stretch. That is, it's like one thing is not connected to another thing. First of all, it was Iran's money already. It just got stolen by the American government. Then, Iran is not Hamas, right? And Iran is a different, they may financially support the Palestinians, but they don't give them orders. So giving money to Iran is not giving money to a Hamas. There's a big difference there. And the idea that money, therefore, is what made October 7th possible, that's also completely wrong. But I heard him say it. I heard Alex Jones just come out there and say, oh, October 7th was done by Biden, because Biden arranged the whole thing. That's ridiculous. So sometimes I really appreciate Alex Jones, and I really don't like how he's been targeted simply for, questioning a school shooting, talking, spreading some conspiracy theories about a school shooting. They have sued him for all he's worth and taken down his websites. And that's really, really wrong. It's really, really wrong what they've done to him. And so I sympathize with him in that light, in the sense that he's kind of the underdog in that sense. And I don't appreciate how they've gone after him. I don't think his message is always helpful. It's good to have somebody questioning the wars. It's good to have somebody questioning the establishment. And that, he was anti-war and anti-police state, when the liberals kind of stopped being that way. When Obama took office, the liberals kind of lost their minds, and they haven't gotten it back since. There are starting to be, occasionally you'll hear some people, on the liberal side who seem to have enough sense to question things, but there's not much, and anybody who is on the liberal side and questions things immediately gets excommunicated, like Jimmy Dore, like Kim Iverson. Kim Iverson was an Air America radio host, but she questioned things, and so she was excommunicated, right? And Jimmy Dore, he was from Young Turks, and he questioned things, and they excommunicated him. So the politics is very, very complicated. Anyway, this is all kind of a roundabout way to actually get to a couple things I wanted to talk about tonight. One of which is I wasn't going to announce that I was going to be there. I'm not a speaker. I'm just going to be there covering it as a journalist. But I guess Garland Nixon, when he went on a show this morning, he let the cat out of the bag. I wasn't going to announce my presence, but I didn't tell him not to say it. So I guess now it's out there. I am headed to Grand Rapids. Michigan. I hope, I know they're going to have security at the event, so I'm probably safe. But yes, Joe Kent is speaking at a Rage Against the War Machine rally in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I guess the Libertarian Party's national convention is happening in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so they're having a Rage Against the War Machine rally. Jose Vega is a speaker. Garland Nixon is a speaker. Joe Kent, the former national security director, is a speaker. So I will be attending that rally to cover it for the press. Scott Horton's going to be there. And I was kind of surprised. I had nothing to do with organizing the rally. I did hear about it from my friend Angela McCurdle, who's a leader of the Libertarian Party, who we've honored. We gave her an award at CPI. She's a friend, obviously different political views, etc. She's in favor of free markets. She's very, very much, has a Mises Caucus perspective, but she wants to build a real anti-war movement. And I respect that. And she respects that about me too, that we want to build a real anti-war movement. So, she reached out to me about it, and I talked to RT, and RT said that this event is very, very important. So I'm getting on a plane and I'm heading out to Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I'll be there. Don't tell the local Antifa. I'm sure they hate everyone else who's going to be there just as much as they hate me. And, I mean, they hate Angela. They hate, the Antifa crowd, they don't like any of us. But Jose Vega is going to be there. Garland's going to be there. Scott Horton's going to be there. I'll be there. I'm not a speaker. I'm just there covering it for the press. Joe Kent is going to be there. So I hope they have a good event, and I hope it's fun. I'm looking forward to it. It should be an interesting Sunday. So yeah, I'm really honored that I was, I was reached out to. I'm honored that I'm able to arrange to have the trip. And I think it's important, even though I won't be there in the capacity of CPI, it'll be important that I'm there for CPI because, I am the leader of the Center for Political Innovation, and I'll be there with some important anti-war voices. And that's something I'm proud to do. So I'm glad that worked out, and I'm glad that I will be there. I haven't been to Michigan in a while. When was the last time I was in Michigan? It's been a couple of years since I've been in Michigan. So we'll see how that goes. I got to tell you, whenever I'm traveling, right, New York City, restaurants in New York City just aren't like they are in the Midwest, and they aren't like they are in the rest of the country. Mexican food in New York City is awful. You cannot get good Tex-Mex Mexican food. There are some like hipster taco places, in Williamsburg and places like that, but that's not what I'm talking about. There's the good old-fashioned Midwestern American Mexican restaurant where I can get, enchiladas and sour cream and guacamole, and they bring you the chips and you don't have to pay for the chips. The chips are free, and they put them on the table with the salsa. That's amazing. I love that stuff. And they don't seem to have very much of that in New York City. I mean, they do have something that's trying to be that in New York City, but something about it just always tastes weird, and it just isn't right. But when you get out of New York City, it's amazing. Another thing they don't have in New York City, Cracker Barrel. There are no Cracker Barrels in New York City. Why would anyone go to Cracker Barrel in New York City? But when I'm on the road, Cracker Barrel. I love Cracker Barrel. Another thing, they have one of them in New York City, just one of them, and it's not real. They do have one. What's that buffet? The Golden Corral. They have like one Golden Corral in New York City, and it's in the Bronx. And I went to it one time, and I really regretted it. I really, really regretted it because it wasn't really a Golden Corral. It was a New York City restaurant. They tried to do the buffet thing, but it wasn't. But Golden Corral outside of New York City, Golden Corral, the meat that they've got, the rolls, it's really good stuff, the vegetables, and Golden Corral. So I don't know, when I get out of New York City, there are lots of American restaurants, wholesome, fattening, bad for you American food I like to eat. So while I'm out there covering this important anti-war event, I also will probably be eating some wholesome all-American food, and that'll be fun as well. So these are crazy times. I saw someone in the chat is asking about Alex Saab and that whole situation. I see that, and I don't even know what to say. But I did, last night I showed you the reporting I did on the Raul Castro indictment and what bullshit that is. And so today I did a follow-up report on that same topic, right? The U.S. government has indicted Raul Castro for the fact that the Cuban government shot down 2 planes in 1996. They're calling this conspiracy to kill American citizens. I did a follow-up report on it today with a lot of information about the planes that were shot down, what that was really about. So take a look at this.
Today, we are announcing an indictment charging Raul Castro.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is the wrong.
And several others with conspiracy to kill U.S. nationals.
Sorry, this is the other one. That was the one from yesterday. Let me put on the one from today, right? This was my more recent report from today. Here we go.
Pretext over facts. That's Cuba's response to the U.S. Justice Department's indictment of former President 94-year-old Raul Castro. The charges center on his role as then defense minister in the 1996 downing of 2 planes flown from Florida by anti-communist exiles, which resulted in 4 deaths. And the U.S. Secretary of State, whose parents previously left the island, has doubled down on the accusations.
The evidence is clear. He admits to it. Raul Castro openly admits and brags about he shot down gave the order to shoot down civilian airplanes. And
how are we getting here?
Well, I'm not going to talk about how we're going to get him here.
Cuba's action at that time was in defense of its sovereignty and peace, and was exercised with a great demonstration of years' patience and tolerance. Cuba exercised the right to protect its airspace and the peace of the Cuban people. Cuba repeatedly demanded that the United States government take action, and it did not. This accusation carries an additional threat since the United States' dark practice of using accusation like this to act militarily against sovereign states is well known.
1996, you had 2 planes shot down, and the organization that organized the flights was called Brothers to the Rescue. Now, mainstream media in America described this as simply a pro-democracy, human rights organization, a charity, a nonprofit that helped Cubans who wanted freedom. However, the founder of the organization, Jose Busalto, he testified before the U.S. Congress a few years after the incident took place, and when he testified, he couldn't cover up and had to acknowledge his affiliation with the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, as well as his participation in the attempted overthrow of the Cuban government, the Bay of Pigs invasion. Here is what he said when testifying.
I was born in Cuba, and as a young man, I was recruited by the CIA, if you may, because we were working at the time with an internal organization in Cuba called the MRR, and the CIA promised to us that they were going to give us all the help we needed to change the government of Cuba into a democratic government. Those were only words that ended up in what was known later as Bay of Pigs.
And you were involved in that?
Yes.
At this point, his involvement with the U.S. CIA and his violent activities against the Cuban government didn't end. He has gone on to describe all kinds of violent acts that would pretty much be described as terrorism against the Cuban government. He infiltrated the island on a fake ID as part of an operation intended to destroy a missile center in Cuba. He shot a 20-millimeter cannon at a hotel filled with Russians. He said he considered the Russians to be invaders, so killing them would be fair game. He opened fire a weapon and shot 16 times at a hotel where Fidel Castro was staying. He believed that it was unlikely that he would kill the Cuban president, but he would have welcomed that outcome. All of these acts could be described as terrorism, violent actions against the Cuban government. And throughout the 1980s, he began flying weapons to Nicaragua, involved with the Contras, a group of people that were known to be involved in cocaine and drug smuggling, and were working to fight against the Nicaraguan government that was aligned with Cuba at that time. And he maintained that these flights that he was engaging in, they were financed by a private corporation. It was not a government activity, he maintained in his testimony. Here's what he went on to say.
It's an uncompleted mission. We found out in 1990 that our people were so desperate that they were leaving the island in whatever they could find that could float, and the whole thing came back to me, and I said, well, maybe we can't overthrow Castro, but at least we can expose him and save the lives of the people that are leaving the island. And a friend of mine came to me one day and said, we should do something about this. He was proposing to get the fishermen boats in the Keys and try to convince them to go out and do patrolling. And I told him that the idea was impractical, but I had an airplane, and that I think what would not be feasible in boats could be feasible using airplanes flying low.
So these flights continued, unauthorized flights violating Cuba's airspace, sometimes dropping leaflets. And it appears Cuban officials found out they had plans to attack infrastructure, like power plants and government buildings. And these forces continued their flights. And at the same time, we had American government officials expressing their concern that at some point Cuba might take action against these flights and shoot down these airplanes that were violating their airspace. Now, a former Cuban government official has spoken about how Cuba felt that they were under a real threat from Brothers to the Rescue and these anti-government activities that were tied to bombings, assassinations, and other efforts to sabotage the island and to attack Cuba and violate its airspace and its sovereignty. Here's what was said.
We have to remember that the Cuban government sent 16 diplomatic notes to the US government. 16! And by the last few notes, they were already using a pleading tone. Cuba reached the point where it was begging the American government to stop the Brothers to the Rescue invasions. What we're seeing now is them bringing back the Brothers to the Rescue history as part of a campaign where a large part of the establishment is pushing for an invasion of Cuba. They are taking advantage of the situation and joining this campaign by using the indictment against Raul Castro.
When you look at the facts of the case and what Brothers to the Rescue was and what has been admitted by their founder, Jose Basulto, at this point you have to ask, wouldn't any government on Earth have responded to this kind of threat from forces tied to violent activities, flying planes that violated their airspace, and being involved in assassinations, bombings, and other violent acts against the government? Wouldn't any government on Earth have responded in these situations? So how can American officials say that they are justified in threatening to extradite and arrest the 94-year-old Cuban leader for these activities? That's a part of this story that mainstream media in the West is certainly not acknowledging, that the air flights at 1996, the incident from 30 years ago, was an incident that came as part of a long campaign against the Cuban government by the United States, and the individuals involved were tied to all kinds of criminal activities and violations of Cuba's sovereignty.
Well, locals on the streets of Havana say they're angered by the U.S. indictment, stating they won't surrender their former leader or any other Cuban citizen.
No one will agree to hand over Raul Castro. If one had taken a small plane to the United States and gone over there, they would have shut you down too and put you in jail and give you a life sentence. So I don't know why they get upset or why they get angry when international laws must be respected. That is not open to discussion.
Among the things they are inventing to want to invade us, to justify things, is an attack. And they're the same ones who are suffocating us with the oil blockade, with everything. So this invention is not new.
Yeah. Yeah, so full disclosure, folks, while we're at it, just might as well mention, I have met the daughter of Raul Castro. This is me with Mariela Castro. So Raul Castro's daughter. So Fidel Castro was the leader of the Cuban Revolution. His brother Raul Castro was with him, in the attack, on the Moncada barracks, and was part of the Cuban Revolutionary Army. And he was the Armed Forces Minister, and he eventually became president after Fidel died. That's his daughter. And I met his daughter when she came to the United Nations, and she came to New York City. Interesting story. So you all remember that the USA established diplomatic relations with Cuba in what year was it? What year did they finally establish diplomatic relations? What year was that? U.S. established diplomatic relations with Cuba. What year was that? 2015. Well, this was in 2013, and that was part of the setting the stage for it. So it was later revealed that I guess in Canada, Ben Rhodes, who was one of Barack Obama's presidential staff and advisors, was negotiating with Cuba about the terms through which U.S. relations would be restored. And one of the deals that they made was that Mariela Castro, who you see me there photographed with, would go on a speaking tour across America, speaking about LGBT rights in Cuba. And so that's what she did. And she toured the United States. This was in 2013. And she toured the country speaking about how, Mariela Castro, her organization in Cuba is called Senasex, and it's like the Center for Sexual Matters or whatever. And they are the ones that now, Cuba has gay marriage. Now in Cuba, their schools have education that's very inclusive about homosexuality and such. And Mariela Castro is largely responsible for Cuba becoming a pro-LGBT country, which is interesting. They are the only communist country in the world that has gay marriage. There's no gay marriage in China. There's no gay marriage in Vietnam. There's no gay marriage in Venezuela. There's no gay marriage in Nicaragua. But she toured the United States. And so when she toured the United States, the International Action Center, they hosted her event. And so that's me with Mariela Castro when she came to the International Action Center, Ramsey Clark, where I was working with them at the time. And, we had a reception. What I thought was wild was because she was a foreign diplomat and a foreign government official, the U.S. Secret Service had to search the building, beforehand. And like the Secret Service searched the building and did a whole thing. And then she came in and she gave her talk, and she gave her speech. And we all lined up to get our pictures taken with her. And it was pretty wild. It was a pretty wild evening. So yeah, that's how I got to meet Raul Castro's daughter. Wild times. So there you go. I guess I'm not completely disconnected from the story because of the fact that I have met the daughter of of Raul Castro. So it's quite wild that, now, she was brought to the United States to give speeches about LGBT rights and, be part of, the kind of liberal woke stuff on college campuses and try to, fit Cuba into the liberal stuff. Whereas now her father has been indicted and her father might be brought to the United States and put in prison. I really hope they are not able to kidnap him. I mean, that is just absolutely crazy. They need to return Maduro immediately. This whole indictment against Raul Castro is absurd. Any government in the world would shoot down a plane full of terrorists. If there's a group of terrorists who've shot up your country, bombed your country, fired cannons and explosives at big buildings in your country, and they're on a plane and they violate your airspace over and over and over again, at some point, you see a plane full of them coming and you shoot it down. And I mean, it's just what any government would have done under these circumstances. And so the indictment against Raul Castro is so ridiculous. It's so completely ridiculous. The indictment against Maduro is equally ridiculous, right? It's like he talked to somebody who talked to somebody who talked to somebody who's a drug dealer. So therefore, Venezuela is responsible for all the drug-related deaths in America. That's so stupid. Donald Trump is really embarrassing himself. He's just seems like another Ronald Reagan. I mean, it's just he's trying to be remembered like Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was, a president who was a regime change hawk who did hawkish, tough guy, invaded Grenada and, and bombed Libya, and killed Gaddafi's daughter. And it's just like I feel like Trump is, he campaigned like he was going to be some kind of great reformer and drain the swamp. And, he was awful in his first term, but his first term was nothing compared to his second term. It kind of reminds you of Bill Clinton, right? And this is kind of an amusing thing that I remember. So when Obama was president, there were a number of people that were apologists for Barack Hussein Obama. And when he was running for re-election in 2012, their argument was, well, sure, he was awful in his first term, but that's because he has to get reelected. Wait till his second term. Wait until his second term. Then he'll be better. And there was a friend of mine at the time who pointed out, actually, Bill Clinton's second term was worse than his first term because in order to get elected, Bill Clinton had to get energy. He had to do some good things to get people to vote for him. It was in Bill Clinton's second term that we got NAFTA, for example. It was in Bill Clinton's second term. You got the bombing of Yugoslavia. It was in Bill Clinton's second term that Bill Clinton actually got even worse, right? Bill Clinton was pretty bad in his first term, but he still had to kind of capture energy, make people excited about him. And in his second term, he bombed and destroyed a country. He destroyed American jobs. He got rid of the welfare program. Welfare as we know it, cut all kinds of government programs. I mean, he indicted the leader of the Teamsters Union, I believe, Ron Carey, who organized UPS after UPS voted to join the Teamsters. Bill Clinton, sent the feds to, indict Ron Carey, the union leader, and, the leader of the Teamsters. And like Bill Clinton's second term was a nightmare. And so people were pointing out, this argument that, oh, wait, Obama's just got to wait till his second term. No, Obama's second term, when he doesn't need to capture any liberal energy to get reelected, you could say that was worse. Now, in Obama's case, honestly, foreign policy in Obama's second term got better, I will say. And that's interesting. In a lot of ways, Obama's second term was not as bad because he fired Hillary Clinton. He replaced Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State with John Kerry. And the second term of Obama's administration was more focused on trade deals and diplomacy. His first term was focused on the Arab Spring and regime change wars, but his second term was focused on the Iran nuclear deal. It was focused on, negotiating with Cuba. And that Obama's second term, in terms of foreign policy, at least, was slightly better because the Hillary Clinton State Department was really running the foreign policy. So that's important to point out. Though you're right, he was funding ISIS at the time. That is true, and Ukraine. So it wasn't that much better, but it seemed like there was a little bit of a different focus. John Kerry wanted to be known as a diplomat, and the Iran nuclear deal and things like that were going down. But I feel like this applies to Trump. As bad as Trump's first term was, his second term has been a nightmare. Trump was saying in his first term, I have created the best economy that's ever been. The economy has never been better than this. And now, Trump is wrecking the economy. I mean, has the economy ever been worse? Everything he complained about under Biden, about the inflation. You think we had inflation under Biden? Well, now the Strait of Hormuz is closed. The Strait of Hormuz is closed at this point. And, you think we had inflation under Biden? Well, here we go. I mean, everything at this point is costing more than it used to cost. I have noticed this in my own life. I already live in New York City where things are expensive, but it's like, my God, everything is expensive nowadays. Well, you can thank Donald Trump for that, and the Strait of Hormuz being closed, and his completely unprovoked, unjustified, illegal attack on Iran that the whole world is like, what are you doing? This war that he can't bring himself to end, which this is a nightmare. Trump's second term has been a nightmare. It's absolutely been a nightmare. There we go. Look, at the end of the day, like I said last night about Thomas Massey, like I've said so many times, we need a movement. The only thing that's going to change this country is a movement. It's not going to be one candidate winning or another candidate winning. It's about the balance of forces. And if you think about it, the reason that people like, Cynthia McKinney, a friend of mine, why was she in Congress? She was in Congress because in Atlanta, Georgia, where she was from, there was a strong Black liberation and Black nationalist movement. And they had her back, and they got her into office, right? Why was Dennis Kucinich in office, right? I used to live in Dennis Kucinich's district when I was in college in Cleveland. He was in office because in Cleveland, there was a very, very big peace and anti-nuclear weapons and anti-nuclear power, which I don't agree with, movement at the time. And Dennis Kucinich had been the mayor. Dennis Kucinich is an interesting story. He was mayor of Cleveland in the 70s as part of like the hippie thing, right? It was that, it was the whole thing about, the generation gap. And he was a young guy who had like shaggy hair, and he became the mayor of Cleveland because he was young. They called him the boy mayor, and it was like he was sticking it to the man and whatever. And he was mayor of Cleveland. He refused to privatize the electrical company. And so the banks refused to lend money to Cleveland and the city of Cleveland. So the city of Cleveland went bankrupt and ran out of money. And he's not remembered in Cleveland as being a very good mayor because he wouldn't privatize the power plants. The banks went after him, and he kind of left office in disgrace. But after he left office as mayor of Cleveland in his first, and that was his first big political move. In the early 80s, then, he got involved in protesting against nuclear power because the Catholic Church was involved in that, and he was Roman Catholic. and he was Roman Catholic. He's Eastern European. I believe what is his ethnicity, right? Kucinich, is he Serbian, right? Dennis Kucinich ethnicity. He's Eastern European of some type. Croatian. Yeah, he's Croatian and Irish. He's half Croatian and Irish. I didn't know he was Irish. So there you go. I assumed he was all Eastern European. And so, he was involved as a former mayor and as a Roman Catholic. He marched with Catholic priests and nuns to protest against nuclear power and nuclear weapons. And back in these days, Cleveland was kind of a center of the peace movement at the time. There had been the 1960s peace movement. And because of that, there had been a lot of anti-war activism associated with Cleveland. It's kind of a weird thing, but Cleveland was kind of a city that the anti-war movement was very much focused on. Case Western Reserve University is where they had a lot of anti-war conferences. There was the Kent State Massacre of 1970. And for some reason, Cleveland as a city was kind of a big deal in the 1960s anti-war movement. And even when I lived there, decades later, you could still kind of see that, right? There was like the peace vigils every Saturday at the farmers market in the West Side. They called it the West Side Market. There'd be about 20 or 30 elderly folks that would be out there. They would have a little peace rally, and it was every Saturday. They would just do it at the West Side Market. That was what they did. And they'd been doing that for decades and decades and decades. And anyhow, so Cleveland had been a center of the peace movement. And, in the 1960s, it had been a really big deal in the anti-war movement in the 1960s. And then, in the 80s, the Catholic Church pivoted, right? Vatican II was kind of a turning point for the Catholic Church. Vatican II, the Second Vatican Council, or whatever they call it, the Vatican had been in a very, very anti-communist mode. But after the early 60s, the Vatican kind of pivoted into a mode of being much more critical of the United States. And what's odd is that the Vatican II, some of the writing in Vatican II is actually critical of the United States position in the Second World War. If you read some of the documents of Vatican II, they're criticizing the Allies in World War II. They're condemning the bombing of Germany by the Allied powers. They're condemning the bombing of Japan. And so it's not necessarily all from a communist place. I mean, they weren't communists or a left place. They were critical of the United States, the Second Vatican Council. And as the Vietnam War continued, you had, Europe was opposing the Vietnam War, and later, not at the beginning, but by about 1969, 1970, the Catholic clergy seemed to be very strongly against the Vietnam War. And then you had the liberation theology thing happening in Latin America. And then Nicaragua, when the Nicaraguan Contra War was going on, the Catholic Church was a target, right? The Nicaraguan Contras were anti-communist, and they were evangelicals, and they viewed the Catholic Church as soft on communism. So there were a lot of massacres of priests and nuns. And so in the 80s, you had what they called the Catholic left. I don't know how much of the Catholic left is left, right, anymore. That used to be a bigger current because of Latin America and liberation theology. And because of the anti-war and anti-nuclear movement, there was this thing they called the Catholic left. There's still something called the Catholic worker movement. There was a woman named Dorothy Day, who was like a Communist Party member who converted to Catholicism and started her own organization. It still exists. They're called the Catholic Worker Movement, and they're like a pacifist and socialistic group and they had a house in Cleveland. They have people around the country, the Catholic Worker Movement. So I guess they're still around, the Dorothy Day group. But there used to be a much larger entity they called the Catholic left. So Dennis Kucinich was part, as the ex-mayor of Cleveland, he would speak at the rallies of the Catholic left. When priests and nuns would march against nuclear power plants and against nuclear weapons, Dennis Kucinich would go to the rallies. And at those rallies, he made friends with Communist Party USA members. The leader of the Communist Party USA in Cleveland for many years was a guy named Rick Nagin. And what's interesting is I understand he's actually been expelled from the CPUSA now. I guess they've kind of forced him out, which is not surprising. The CPUSA has been, they were always an issue, but in the last couple of years, they've really gone crazy. When they published a crazy piece against CPI, against me on their website. And, the Communist Party is really just, deteriorated. And I've heard in the last 5 or 6 years they even kicked out Rick. And for years, Rick Nagin was like their main guy in Cleveland. And Rick Nagin became friends with Dennis Kucinich when Dennis Kucinich was going to the Catholic left rallies. And Rick Nagin encouraged Dennis Kucinich to run for Congress, and he won. And he was elected to Congress. And that Dennis Kucinich gradually over the course of his time in Congress, he transitioned from being kind of a Catholic liberal to being like a full-on leftist. For example, he, when he first ran for office, he was anti-abortion because he's a Catholic, right? And he thought abortion was wrong, right? He was against gay marriage, I believe, but he gradually shifted his position. And he also got more into New Age spirituality. I don't think he's Catholic anymore. I think he's a New Age kind of guy. And when I was in his district, one of the things that he emphasized a lot was that he was critical of medicine. He was for naturopathic medicine and all of that. And so, but like Dennis Kucinich was an interesting figure. Why are we talking about Dennis Kucinich again? But the reason Dennis Kucinich was able to be elected is there was the Catholic left. There was kind of this activist movement, that existed. So it's all about the balance of forces. That's my point. Like Dennis Kucinich didn't just randomly run for office. He ran for office in the context of there being on the west side of Cleveland, where I used to live, there was a mass movement. There were people that protested. Priests and nuns went out and protested nuclear power, protested for Nicaragua, and he was able to win. The other thing is that when I lived in Dennis Kucinich's district, one thing that I knew was that and I don't know if this would be the case anymore now with the internet and stuff. Many of the people in his district did not agree with his politics, but they still voted for him because he was a community figure. He was of Eastern European descent, and the white people of Cleveland tend to be Eastern European, and his office took care of you, right? There was somebody we knew who was going to get her home foreclosed, a woman who was an activist, and she was having trouble with her loan. She called Dennis Kucinich's office, and Dennis Kucinich's office said, wow. And they called up the bank and they renegotiated her loan, and she didn't lose her home. Now, that's pretty big, right? Can you imagine? Most members, I think here in New York City, if I called up my member of Congress and said, hey, I'm going to lose my home, can you call it? And they would say, no, that's your problem. Deal with it. But that was Dennis. Dennis's office was there for you if you needed them. One wild story. So that guy, Rick Nagin, who was Dennis Kucinich's very close friend, who was a member of the Communist Party. Rick Nagin is a Zionist, right? And openly. The Communist Party for many years, their position was we support Israel's right to exist, etc. I don't know what they say now, but and Rick Nagin, he ran Dennis Kucinich's office. He was kind of in charge of the building. He wouldn't allow pro-Palestine groups to meet at Dennis Kucinich's office because Rick Nagin is a Zionist. And so the Arab American groups would have to have their meetings elsewhere. And Dennis Kucinich would go to their meetings elsewhere. Dennis Kucinich was always pro-Palestine. And so in a way, Dennis Kucinich was more radical than his communist, staff guy, right? Rick Nagin, who was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party, was a Zionist, whereas, Dennis Kucinich was pro-Palestine. And Dennis Kucinich, any Arab American event in Cleveland, he was there. And I have a couple wild Dennis Kucinich stories I can tell you. One wild Dennis Kucinich story is there was a Palestine fundraiser on the east side of Cleveland. There's a lot of Arab Americans who live on the east side of Cleveland. They own like little stores. The east side of Cleveland tends to be more African American. There was an Arab American fundraiser that I went to for the Arab American Pro-Palestine Association. So I went to it, and we had assigned seats. I bought my ticket, and they said, all right, you're sitting at that table right there. And so I sat there, and there was another activist woman who I knew, and she was at the table, and she sat there, and there were 2 empty chairs next to us. We're just sitting there. It's assigned seats. We can't just go wherever we want. And then Dennis Kucinich and Elizabeth Kucinich walked into the room. And the activist woman sitting next to me, she gets this look on her face. She said, I ain't moving. Because we assumed that they're going to make us move, right? And Elizabeth and Dennis Kucinich walked over, and they sat down next to us. And we assumed they were going to boot us out because we're not important enough to be sitting next to a member of Congress. They didn't make us move, right? We had our assigned seats. and Dennis had his assigned seat, and his wife Elizabeth had their assigned seat, and we spent the whole evening together, sitting together at the table. I didn't see that coming. And I guess it was random, or I don't know how it was decided, but I got to sit across from Dennis Kucinich for a whole evening. And I didn't think that would happen. And I had a stack of communist newspapers with me, because I had come to the event to hand out the communist newspaper. I had to buy a ticket. They assigned me my seat. It was a dinner. So I'm sitting there, and Dennis Kucinich, he sees the communist newspaper, and he took one from my table, and he folded it up, and he winked at me like, "Yeah, kid, I know what that is." I thought that was so funny. It was very funny. And so, yeah, I got to be at the Arab American fundraiser with Dennis Kucinich. That was pretty wild. And there was an older woman the woman who recruited me into the Workers' World Party was a woman named Frances Dostal. And I've got like a documentary about her on the YouTube channel. She had been a longtime activist in Cleveland, and her husband had been a founding member of the Workers' World Party. She had been too, named Ted Dostal. And one time I was at a parade on the east side of Cleveland. We were handing out leaflets or something like that. And Dennis Kucinich was at the parade, and it was me and Frances, this, elderly woman in her 80s. We were there handing out leaflets, and Dennis Kucinich walked by, and he came over, and he knew me by name. He said, "Caleb, right? You're Caleb. You're at Baldwin Wallace." I said, "Yeah." And then he hugged Frances, and he said, "That Ted, that husband of yours, was a great man." He knew both of us. I thought that was really amazing. I was just some college kid who went around protesting and was in communist groups. And she was a longtime activist in the area, and her husband had died. And he knew that she was Ted Dostal's widow. And he knew that I was this kid who went to a college and protested. I mean, that's a really skilled politician, I will say. But again, it's about, there was a movement. He was a movement politician. He was elected because he was part of an activist movement, right? And that, Dennis Kucinich was able to win. And ultimately, yes, he lost to Marcy Kaptur. And the reason he lost to Marcy Kaptur was they redistricted him. They changed his district. And they did the same thing to Ron Paul. And they did the same thing to Cynthia McKinney. It was around Obama's first term. They changed the districts to make sure that Dennis couldn't be in Congress anymore, which was unfortunate. It was unfortunate. But Dennis Kucinich was an interesting character. Why are we talking about Dennis Kucinich tonight? I don't know, but I like Dennis Kucinich. I really look up to him. I hope he's at the rally. I hope I see him at the rally this weekend. Maybe he'll be there. He was at Rage Against the War Machine #1. He's a good guy. Dennis Kucinich is a great guy, and he was for Trump, right, in the last election, like I was, because Trump was putting forward an anti-war message. Trump has betrayed that message, but, and he worked with RFK, but then he left RFK over the over Gaza. He just couldn't stomach the Zionism. So yeah, I feel very highly. I feel good about Dennis Kucinich. I admire Dennis Kucinich in a lot of ways. But anyway, so I got a couple other things. So he should come to our Chicago convention. Exactly. Yeah, John, make that happen. Make the phone call. I'm just kidding. Well, no, maybe if I see him at the in Michigan, I'll ask him. I don't know if he's coming or not. He was at the first Rage Against the War Machine, so maybe he'll be at that one too. I don't know. I like Dennis Kucinich. Dennis Kucinich is a good guy. He interviewed Bashar Assad, for Fox News. Do you remember that? During the Syrian conflict, he went to Syria. He interviewed Bashar Assad. That was pretty cool. And he did a really good interview. Maybe we'll pull that up. Right. I do have a couple other things I want to talk about tonight. What the heck? Maybe I can pull this up. Dennis Kucinich, Bill O'Reilly convention interview. I remember watching Dennis Kucinich's interview with Bill O'Reilly. It was really good at the time. And they did it on the floor of one of the conventions, and he did an amazing job. And yeah, it was, I think, in 2008 or something like that. That was a really good interview. All right. If I can find that interview. Wild times. I don't think I can find it. There are times he's been on the O'Reilly Factor, but the one I'm thinking about, I can't. Oh, no, I think. No. Yeah, I don't think this interview is out there. Dennis Kucinich is a very good speaker and stuff. Dennis Kucinich is great. I mean, he's just great in many, many ways. But yeah, if I can find that Dennis Kucinich interview on the floor of the convention, that would be good. Yeah. So yeah, if I could find that interview, that would be a good thing to play on here. All right, let's see. Let's watch Dennis Kucinich. This is a 2009 interview that Dennis Kucinich gave. We'll put that on. We'll just see. We'll put this on. This is Dennis Kucinich versus Bill O'Reilly in 2009. Then we'll move on to the next thing. I don't want to be one of those people who lives in the past, right? I need to make more current references, you know. You know, this is a little bit of a walk down memory lane. But Dennis Kucinich is a good guy. So, yeah, this is Dennis Kucinich interviewed by Bill O'Reilly in 2009. So we'll put that on. Here we go.
Directly ahead, the very liberal Congressman Dennis Kucinich will tell us whether he thinks Obama will govern sharply left. Personal story segment tonight, the far left versus moderate Democrats. Which side will win Obama's attention? Today, far left Move On outfit said it raised $88 million for Mr. Obama, and you know those people are going to want some payback. Joining us now from Cleveland, Congressman Dennis Kucinich. All right, so you just heard Karl Rove say that you're going to be one of the far left guys pushing Obama that direction, that you're going to want investigations and all of this business. Is that true?
You know, Karl Rove, who I respect as a person who participates in the affairs of the nation, he seems to be too sensitive about the prospect of indictments, and I think that we've got to focus on this economy, frankly, Bill. I mean, the economy is in trouble. The market again drops 486 points today.
Why do you think that happened? Why do you think the market drops?
I think investors are having trouble getting confidence because you've got the government picking winners and losers. This bailout was wrong to begin with. Banks are hoarding money. They're using it to buy up other banks. Bailout money's going for bonuses. I mean, what's going on here? The American people have to ask.
I'm trying to figure it out, but is Obama up to turning the economy around? I mean,
I think he's got it. I think he'll have a team that'll do it. You know what? And we have to. Let me tell you why. You've got millions of Americans whose homes are in jeopardy. We've got to do something about directing loan modifications to keep people in their homes, help them make sure they can pay a lower interest rate, lower principal, but keep them in their homes.
Listen, I don't disagree with any of that. I just don't know how quickly this is going to happen, but I'm happy to hear you say you're not going to waste time on a bunch of fishing expeditions and
no, you know what? We don't have time for that
because
we
you're
have
right.
To get what's going on.
You have to get down and give the folks relief. All right, now,
right?
You're going to have tension. You're going to have tension between moderate Democrats and you know, committed left-wing guys like you, because in addition to fixing the economy, and I don't say that disparagingly, you're upfront about your views.
But you know what? That American eagle has a left wing and a right wing.
Absolutely, I'm not saying that in any disparaging, sneering way.
So let the eagle soar, as a former Attorney General would have said.
Just don't want to soar over my head because you know what can happen then. You basically have this tension, and it is there, because along with helping folks with their mortgages and getting the economy moving again, you have a bunch of promises by Barack Obama that he's going to fund all kinds of programs and add another $1 trillion to the deficit. Now, taking as much money as he can from me ain't going to pay that bill. So I'm, along with a lot of other Americans, very uneasy about his governance, what he's going to do. Can you reassure me?
Well, I think the first thing, and you said at the beginning of your program, you know, you have to give him a chance. We have to see what his economic policies will be. I will submit that he's going to have to look at how you can create jobs, how you can rebuild America's infrastructure. What do you do about protecting our basic industries, steel, automotive, aerospace? We don't protect those. Our national security's adversely affected. So he's being handed a set of circumstances. He's got to look at them. He's got to get it as it is. This isn't about left-right. I'm telling you, Bill.
No, it's about whether he can do the job or not. That's what it's about. I agree. Look, I'm agreeing with you more tonight than I've ever agreed with you. I'm agreeing with you more tonight than I've ever agreed with you. Okay,
I'll take that. But I'll also tell you, Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah, he's got to prove to the American people, to the markets, and to the world that he's up for it and that he's going to be very specific in what he does. And I'm telling you what, when you have a warfare within your own party, the Democratic party where you got the far left loons wanting one thing and the moderates wanting the other thing, it's going to be hard for Barack Obama. It's going to be hard for him.
Every democracy under any administration has a dynamic tension which produces a synthesis which hopefully brings about public policy which serves all the people. That's the nature of democracy. And at the same time, I don't think it serves to disparage any faction within the Democratic Party, because the truth of the matter is the party's going to have to unite behind Barack Obama. I may not agree with him on everything,
but it's got to tilt one way or the other, and that's what people are worried about.
We shouldn't be fearful about that, because what we have to do, we have to Bill, you shouldn't be fearful. You're not a fearful person.
I'm scared to death that I'm going to be living in San Francisco on Long Island. I don't want San Francisco values. I don't want socialism. I don't want any of this stuff. So I have a right to be fearful.
Then you should have been complaining about George Bush, who basically made a socialist move to give a bailout to the
Congressman. President Bush is gone. It's over. He's leaving. Now we have a new guy we have to worry about.
There's not going to be socialism. We got to make the economy work for everyone, Bill.
All right. We have you on tape.
I think Obama has to do that.
We have you on tape, and we pray you're right. Congressman, always good to see you.
Well, that wasn't the best interview. I mean, he did a good job, but it's like, what were they talking about? Like, will Obama's policies be good or whatever? But anyway, so I got a couple more things to talk about. So, the Uhuru movement, right? That is one of the big things that CPI has done, is we stood with this black organization that was targeted by the FBI. So I spoke at their convention, as you remember. I posted the video of that. I gave 2 messages, and they posted the second message today. Also, thank you. They sent me, it was really kind. They sent me cup holders. Look at that. They sent me some nice cup holders with the Uhuru flag on them. That was so nice. Didn't see that coming. Went to my mailbox. There were the cup holders. It was really awesome. Really nice thing to do. They had no reason to send me cup holders, but they did. And they sent me a nice thank you note for speaking at their convention. They sent me these lovely cup holders. I was very humbled by that. So that was pretty awesome. So I guess I wanted to show my second message. This was my second solidarity statement on behalf of CPI that I gave at the convention. So yeah, this is the second one. Now you'll notice that behind some of the chairs on the stage, there's a bunch of balloons that are shaped like hearts. And that's because after I spoke, after the solidarity statements, they did a panel about finding a romantic partner in the revolutionary movement, which I thought was pretty interesting. They had members of the group who had been and have been married to other activists, and that was interesting. But the hearts are not up there for me. The hearts were not up there just randomly. They're because of the romance and love themed panel that they had after me. But this is my second statement to the Uhuru convention in April. So take a look.
Uhuru, comrades. All right, we're going to keep on going with the solidarity statements. Up next, we've already heard from him, but we're going to hear from him again, right, comrade? Caleb Maupin. Yes, Caleb Maupin.
Make some noise for Caleb, comrade.
Yes.
Uhuru. CPI in the house.
CPI in the house.
Uhuru. Uhuru, Caleb. Thank you.
Uhuru, Caleb.
What a great place to be on a Saturday morning, huh? Well, I guess I just want to mention that, if you look at our website, the Center for Political Innovation, and you look at the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru movement, you might think, like, how could these organizations have anything to do with each other? But actually, if you look at our history, we've kind of intersected paths quite a bit. I think it turns out I first met Jesse Neville way back in 2011 during the Occupy Wall Street protests. He was there promoting Burning Spear, promoting Chairman O'Malley's work, and I was there. And I remember that the first issue of Burning Spear that I ever read had the testament of Muammar Gaddafi in it. And at that time, 2011, so much of the left refused to stand in solidarity with Libya and their heroic anti-colonial revolution that was destroyed by Barack Obama. And I remember being very moved to see that statement. And one moment that was very key in the founding of the Center for Political Innovation was 2 years after that. I was invited, at the time I was with a different leftist organization, and I was invited to Quito, Ecuador,
for the World Festival of Youth and Students, which is an international gathering that happens every 4 years. And I remember going to Quito, Ecuador, and it was an international gathering of different activists and revolutionaries from all over the world, and they took us to one part of the airport where all the young people that were going to the World Youth Festival were gathering, and there were young people from Greece, and young people from the African continent, and young people from Asia, Sri Lanka, places like that. And then I remember a hush went over the group when it was announced that the plane from North Korea had just landed. And everyone got very, very silent. And then suddenly the doors of the airport flew open, bam! And they marched in, and the men were wearing suits and ties, and the women were wearing traditional Korean gowns, and they marched in like perfect formation. And the whole airport was silent. And then one person started applauding. And then other people started applauding, and pretty soon the whole airport of hundreds of people from all over the world were standing and applauding and cheering for the delegation from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And it was this amazing moment where I stood there and I thought about, all the people in Korea that have been killed by U.S. imperialism, and to be here in this crowd with the people of the world, the resistance to U.S. imperialism. It was a moment that I will never forget. And being at that festival was kind of a turning point, because I had read about Marxism and socialism, but to actually be with the countries that have broken out of imperialism and to understand their perspective and to hear their critique of the Western left, and why can't you get your shit together, why are you guys so weird, to hear their critique, it was really, really meaningful to hear. And fast forward to, years later, we had the Center for Political Innovation, a new organization. Our slogan was out of the movement to the masses. We don't want to be part of the left. We want to build a real anti-imperialist movement that has deep roots in the population here in the United States. And July 29th, 2022, that's a day that people here remember very, very well. And that day, my phone was exploding all morning. Oh my goodness, did you hear what's going on? What happened in St. Petersburg, Florida? What happened in St. Louis? And, we saw what happened, and we said we have to do everything we can to support. It was just common sense. When we read that they were targeting this organization, and the reasons they were targeting this organization, it just made sense. We had to support. And I believe I spoke to you on the phone that day, if I'm not correct. Akile, I believe we spoke on the phone, and I said, look, we're about to have a gathering in Chicago. We want to do everything we can to support you. And it just seemed like, based on what we knew, common sense. When someone's under that attack, you stand with them. And it was just the conference that we ended up doing was just a couple weeks later, but it got a little bit interesting. One of the people that we honored at that conference was Tara Reid, who has heroically spoken out against Joe Biden. She sends her greetings from Russia, by the way. She's now in exile in Russia, and I had an opportunity to meet with her when I was just there. And we were already planning to honor her, but we also wanted to stand and make our statement of solidarity with Uhuru. And so when that conference happened, I got mysterious phone calls telling me I needed to cancel the conference. Tara Reid got mysterious messages also, you need to cancel this conference, you can't be having this conference. It was very, very bizarre. Then we had the conference, and that conference ended up being pretty big because that conference, not only we honored Tara Reid, but Nick Brana was there, and that conference kind of inspired the Rage Against the War Machine protests, but it made a pretty big statement that right after the raid, we were there to make clear that we were in full solidarity. And John McCarthy had been kind of observing our material and all of that, but at that conference, he saw how we stood with Uhuru, and he became a member of CPI, and he's been kind of functioning as the liaison between our two organizations very, very effectively ever since then. And that was an important conference. Fast forward to, I was on the planning committee. I was the chair of the U.S. delegation to the World Youth Festival in 2024 in Russia. And when that youth festival planning happened, I said to the Russians, I said, they are threatening to throw the Uhuru movement in prison just because they went to a conference in Russia. So we need to do a United Nations press conference and make clear that we're nervous to go to Russia ourselves because of what they did. And so we called a United Nations official press conference that was attended by the UN Press Corps, where we raised the Uhuru case and talked about it. And that press conference was viewed all over the world. And then at the World Youth Festival itself, myself and Noah Schenk, we both had the opportunity to speak and ask a question to the Russian president, and we raised the Uhuru case with the Russian president and spoke about it in our limited time and able to speak about it. And we're very happy to do that. When I looked at so much of the organizations, there were a lot of organizations that said nothing in support of the Uhuru movement. There were other organizations that put out one statement and said, we're against it. Well, good for you. Oh, you're against it. Great. I'll give you a cookie, right? I mean, it's, they didn't do anything. But, based on what I know about anti-imperialism and what I know about the history of FBI repression, we made this the focus. We made the focus of our efforts solidarity with the Uhuru movement. And I guess I just want to end by saying that, we are the majority. The global majority is against imperialism and colonialism. And if you look at what's happening on the African continent and how the people of the continent are rallying around Ibrahim Traore and the Union of Sahel States and the Days of Solidarity, this organization and our organization, we have Days of Action for Ibrahim Traore. And if you look on the African continent, they have millions of people in the streets. This is the future. And that ultimately the hope is we need to build a wing of the global axis of resistance in America. That's the way forward. That imperialism is dying, and the only future for the United States is going to be joining the to everything that's being done here. We stand in full solidarity. We appreciate the friendship and solidarity that Uhuru has extended to us as well, and we will continue standing with you. We're looking forward to being with you in Georgia for the upcoming appeal and supporting you there. And anything we can do to stand with Uhuru, we will. Imperialism and colonialism are the past, and the future is growth and creativity and the African continent. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Relentless.
Vanguard up.
Relentless.
Touch one.
Touch all.
Touch one.
Touch all.
Vanguard up.
Relentless.
Uhuru.
Yeah, those remarks were much less scripted and much more off the cuff than my first remarks. But I'm really glad I was able to just kind of give an overview of our relationship with the Uhuru movement. So they put that up today on the Burning Spear YouTube channel. Thought I would just show that. I guess I'll just end my opening remarks by talking about the image that I used. I guess we can pull it up, the thumbnail that I made for this stream. What is it? Right? We'll put it up, put it on the screen here. The thumbnail that I made for this stream was America could join the New World. And it has an image of the Bering Sea tunnel and bridge that could be created, connecting America to Russia. And that is something we at the Center for Political Innovation are huge advocates for, because the French imperialists and the French economy, the British imperialists and the British economy, Italy and all the old colonial powers, they are the past. The future is in the East. It is in Eurasia. It is the New World. And anything we can do to move America even 1 inch closer to the New World and away from the dying Western globalist imperialist system, anything we can do to just inch America a little bit closer to the New World is something we have to advocate for. And I really do believe that there is a good chance that this bridge, this tunnel, could happen. I listened to Kirill Dmitriev when he was in New York City, and that was in the fall. And I know about the negotiations taking place regarding ending the conflict in Ukraine. I really do think, this could happen. If Trump, maybe he's been an awful president, but if he does one good thing, and maybe he'll do it for his own selfish gain, just because the Arctic is full of natural gas, just because people in Alaska are Republicans and they voted for him, and a lot of Alaskan business owners, their property values would go up if that bridge was built. I don't know why Trump would do it. But if Trump could just do this, that could be one good thing he would do. And I believe that would get us closer to the New World. The only future that America is going to have is with the rising new economy in the East. The old order based in colonialism and imperialism is dying. It's dying because of the built-in problems of profits in command. And they think the only way to save their system is to degrow us. And that's just not going to work, because humanity is not going to be degrown. Humanity will not be degrown. Humanity is going to march forward. Human beings do not accept being degrown. They march forward, they build, and they construct. So we're not going to be degrown. So we need to find a way to be part of the rising new economy in the East. And, the Bering Sea Tunnel Bridge, that's like one thing that could get us closer. Better relations with China, that's another thing that could get us a little bit closer. Anything to get us closer to the rising new economy, we have to be for. So, yeah, I just wanted to end by saying that. Get the new book, right? My new book is out, folks, and we need to get this book everywhere. This is the book that will show people what CPI is all about. So if you got a question, I'm doing questions. We got a couple Buy Me a Coffees that have come in. Buy Me a Coffee is the best way to send your questions, but you can also do super chats now that we're monetized. You can do Rumble Rants. Gabby sent a question. She cash apped me at Caleb Maupin 22. Questions are appreciated for the second half of the show. So let's do the roll call. Names and locations, names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations, names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Who is with us tonight? And after that, we'll start answering people's questions. Who's with us? Who is with us? Names and locations, names and locations. Who is with us? I'm an evolving techno dinosaur. A techno dinosaur. Is that like you go to like dance clubs and right? You got the T-Rex there and Auckland, New Zealand, Ryan in Kansas City, here I come. Favos in Oklahoma City. Very good, right? California, right? Gabby, awesome. Maine, Bendigo, Australia, David Fox, Joe Gutierrez in California, Grady in South Lake Tahoe, Liverpool in the United Kingdom. It has got to be late over there, but I'm glad you're with us. Panama City, Panama, Central America. Very, very good. Samuel in the Russian Far East. Well, good to have you with us, Samuel. Gabby in Chicago. Always good to have you. Anthony in Detroit. Good to have you as well. Not an expert in Maine. All right. Even if you're not an expert, we still welcome you here. You don't have to be an expert to come to this stream. Fakibo in Montreal, Penny in Minnesota, where Mexican food abounds. That is true. There is a Mexican food place at the Mall of America that is heavenly. I went there 3 times when I was out there for work. I practically moved into that place. I was there for hours because they refilled my unnamed diet beverage, my soda, and the guac, and oh man, it was heavenly. And compared to New York City prices, it cost almost nothing. It was amazing. Mexican food abounds. Milwaukee, Arlene Chambers, Canada and Panama, Michael in Bayonne. Good to see you, brother Michael. Nah, Penny, I have to disagree. Very good. D in the Hampton Road, Virginia. Hampton Road, Virginia. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Who is with us? I feel like every stream is like a reunion. We're like a group of friends who like gets together every night and chills for a little bit. Do you feel that way? I feel like every stream we do is just like a hangout or something. We're just on here chilling and talking about life. And tonight I came on, I had kind of a plan, but I didn't come on here with a big speech to make. Oh, John McCarthy in Chicago. Good to see you, John. JDL, good to see you. Kiwi Corner. I just feel like we just get on here and we talk about politics. We talk about world events. Nothing beats the great meal followed by a refreshing unnamed diet beverage. Absolutely, David Fox. Absolutely. Right. Who knows? We'll tell you what, folks. If I can get 3 more Buy Me a Coffees or Super Chats, I will sing an Irish song to you all. I will sing the 23rd of June, right? So there you go. 3 more Super Chats or 3 more Buy Me a Coffees, and I will sing. David inspired me because by saying that, nothing beats a great meal. Immediately, it just slapped into my head the traditional Irish song, the 23rd of June, which I was tempted to start singing it now. But actually, I will sing it if we can get 3 more Rumble Rants or 3 more, or no, not Rumble Rants, 3 more Super Chats or 3 more Buy Me a Coffees. Either one, 3 more, and I will sing the traditional Irish song, the 23rd of June, because I kind of feel like singing it anyway. So I will give you all, I'm not going to embarrass myself by singing unless you all give me proper motivation. So yes, I will sing the 23rd of June because I like that song. I actually dreamed about that song the other day. Do you dream about songs? I don't often dream about songs, but when you talk about how comfortable it is to drink unnamed diet beverage after a good meal, that made me think of the song that I dreamed about the other day. That song is sometimes called the Jug of Punch, but there's a different Irish song called the Jug of Punch, right? And so it gets confusing. So people just call this Irish song that I really like the 23rd of June, and I will sing it myself. Right? It's called the 23rd of June, and it's a song about relaxing and enjoying yourself. I think it's also about alcohol, but I don't drink, so but yeah, it's called the 23rd of June, also known as the Jug of Punch, but it's not the regular Jug of Punch song. There's a much more well-known song called Jug of Punch, and it's not that one. But anyway, all right, so let's start answering questions. Again, 3 more, I sing the song. All right, John said, Ro Khanna admitted that the Democrats lost in 2024 because they wouldn't stop the genocide, and they need to address this. Absolutely. And we are going to put that video on from Ro Khanna. And that is totally true, that the Democratic base and all the American people are horrified by what Israel is doing. And because of Democrats' refusal to address that, the Democrats lost. If they had made voting for them a way to oppose what Israel was doing, they would have gotten a lot more votes than they got, but they just couldn't bring themselves to do it. Please sing. The 23rd of June was my parents' wedding anniversary. Well, now I have to sing it, but I still need 2 more. But there we go. All right, we'll put on Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna, thank you for sending that, John.
Not a single mention of Gaza in the 192-page DNC autopsy report that was just released today. As someone who campaigned in Michigan and Wisconsin, let me tell you, one of the reasons we lost is our blank check to Israel and Netanyahu while they committed genocide in Gaza. We must speak and confront hard truths if this party is to win in 2028.
All right. Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, how is it that there was no mention of Gaza? Nobody at the convention put forward a motion that got voted down or anything. I mean, that is absolutely crazy. And it's true. I mean, the Jill Stein people, the only way you could vote against what Israel was doing, you had to vote for Jill Stein because, the Democrats just wouldn't even let an Arab American speak. I mean, it was so nuts. I mean, they were just so determined to pander to the Israel lobby during the election. It was so crazy. So now the next Buy Me a Coffee I received, it says, thoughts on James Fishbeck. I think he's just bring out the subhuman racist assholes. They're fascists. Like they openly hate immigrants and black people. Pat Buchanan being a Fed to young men in damaging them. Xi Jinping, Goliop. I don't know what Goliop is. It says, is Goliop real? What is Goliop? I'm going to look up what Goliop is, first of all. I don't know what that is. Goliop. No, Goy Slop, right? That's not what he wrote. He wrote Goliop, but Goy Slop is an internet slang term originating primarily on platforms like 4chan that refers to low-quality, highly processed fast food. It is a combination of the term goy, a Hebrew and Yiddish word for non-Jew, and slop for unappetizing food. An extremist spacist is used as a derogatory dog whistle to promote the conspiracy theory that Jewish elites distribute mass-produced unhealthy food to non-Jews to control and weaken them. Yawn. I would say it probably isn't. I mean, that's, come on now. I mean, I don't know. There is a level. I get what you're saying. And I'll be honest, I don't trust James Fishbeck. I don't. I mean, there's just something. I've seen the videos of him, talking the way he does. And I mean, I've seen the videos of him talking just like a regular Trumper a year ago and defending U.S. attacks on Iran, defending Israel. And then he's pivoted, and now he seems to say a lot of good things opposing Israel and opposing the U.S. political establishment. And there's somebody in our community, one of our people, who's been going to his rallies and kind of, raising kind of socialistic things and getting away with it, and that's good. But there's something about him that just kind of rubs me the wrong way. And like you said, yeah, there is an element of, like when he says he's going to like make it cost $1 million for any Chinese student. I saw his interview with Tucker Carlson. There was a whole lot of hating China in his interview. And I don't trust James Fishbeck, but the fact that so many people want to vote for him in Florida and that he's come out swinging against Israel the way he has, that's a good sign, and often, it's not, a lot of times, unfortunately, politics is not about who's a good person deep down and who is bad. A lot of times politics is not really about that. It's about what is the balance of forces. Sometimes bad people can do good things, and sometimes good people can do very bad things. And that politics is, again, it's the balance of forces. It's about the balance of forces. Whoever someone is, there's something about James Fishbeck when you listen to him. There's kind of a, I don't know, that there's something about his vibe that gives you the impression that he's not coming from a good place. Okay. And I pick up on that. And there's an element of hating China. There's an element of this hating immigrants, this nationalism. So I get what you're saying. I can see what you're kind of seeing in the negativity of James Fishbeck. But again, the fact that he says so many good things, and that, that people want to vote for him because he says those things, that, he may not be a good dude. He kind of gives me the vibe of somebody who's kind of a political opportunist. But that said, I mean, he's saying good things and people are supporting him because he says those good things. So that in and of itself is good. Will he win? Will they actually let him win? That's pretty wild. Will they actually let him become a member of Congress? We shall see. We shall see. I need one more super chat or buy me a coffee, and then I will sing 23rd of June. Thomas Massey should speak at Sunday's Rage Against the War Machine rally in Grand Rapids. I agree. And I honestly, John, I think that there's a good chance that he will. That would panic all the right people. I think there's a good chance he'll be there. I mean, I have no way of knowing. I mean, I don't have any inside information or anything, but because the Libertarian Party convention is happening in Grand Rapids at the same time, and because it's the Midwest, I think there's actually a good chance that Thomas Massey will actually be there. But we shall see. Maybe he has to recover from his loss or whatever. But it seemed like if you listened to his speeches, his concession speech, he wants to build some kind of movement. And I think there's a good chance that he will be there. But we'll have to see. We'll just have to see. Maybe not. Now, this is a bummer, David. And honestly, I don't have a full answer here. I don't know what's going on. It's horrifying. CPI, we were out there. We wanted Alex Saab to be freed. We protested to free Alex Saab. Alex Saab is a Colombian-born Venezuelan diplomat who was in charge of arranging business deals with Iran and managing a lot of the money of the Venezuelan government. And the U.S. government abducted him. And we were involved in all kinds of protests to free Alex Saab. And he was returned. And now he's been extradited back to the United States. I guess maybe he's going to testify against Maduro. The whole thing looks awful. I mean, it looks absolutely awful. And I don't quite know what to make of it. And I am urging people to be very, very cautious with Venezuela, because it's such a strange situation. When I was in Russia, the Venezuelans I spoke to said it's more complicated than and that's what they told me. And, you just have to, at the end of the day, look, a revolution like the Venezuelan revolution is not a matter of somebody getting elected who believes the right things or does the right things. It's a matter of property. That Venezuela has built an economy centered around their state-controlled oil and gas. They have built an economy where profits are not in command, where they sell oil on the international markets. They use that oil to subsidize a planned economy. And we shall see if that planned economy of Venezuela is dismantled. Then we'll know there's a counter-revolution. And even if their government does bad things, I'm not saying they necessarily are, but if their government, is kind of backed into a corner, or if their government, for opportunistic reasons, whatever's going on, that doesn't change the character of Venezuela. Gaddafi supported the war against the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. He was on the wrong side in Afghanistan. And there are many examples. China was friendly with the government of Pinochet in Chile. And in the name of fighting the Soviet Union, China took a lot of unprincipled stances during the Gang of 4 years and even up into the 1980s. So, just because a socialist or anti-imperialist government does something bad, that doesn't mean it's a full counter-revolution. And who's to say that they're not just doing the best they can? I don't know. We will know, though, right? You can't blink and miss a counter revolution. You can't, right? If they start dismantling socialism in Venezuela, we'll know. And that will be very, very obvious. Right now, it looks like, Venezuela's leader has been kidnapped. Their current leader there's an indictment against her that they could go and kidnap her at any time. And Alex Saab, who was indicted, was pardoned and returned by Biden in a prisoner swap, has now been extradited back to the United States from Venezuela. I don't know what's going on. It's bad. It's bad. And it shouldn't be happening. And I mean, it's awful. It's a downer. And I honestly don't know what to make of it. And we'll know soon. So I wish I had more information, David, but I'm urging people to be very cautious because, one thing is you don't want to jump the gun, because if you jump the gun, right, being aligned with anti-imperialists is very important. And we don't want to burn bridges with the anti-imperialist movement. I see dumb stuff people say. I mean, there's certain forces that in response to the kidnapping of Maduro, they said, oh, Venezuela just needs nukes. And that is such a dumb thing to say because of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and all kinds of things. That is just such an arrogant, oh, Venezuela didn't get nukes. They're retarded. They didn't get nukes. I mean, I was like, are you serious? Like, that's analysis, right? And if you don't get a nuclear bomb, well, then you got what you deserved. You didn't get a nuclear bomb. It's like, give me a break, and there's a lot of jumping the gun in our circles, and there's a lot of people who would like me to jump the gun, and I've said I'm not going to jump the gun. We'll know as things develop in Venezuela, and I got to say, a lot of what I'm seeing doesn't look good, but I don't know the whole story, and the last shoe hasn't dropped, and so we'll see, and we'll know more as things develop. Now, we do have enough super chats to sing the song, so I will be singing the song, but let me we got one from Arlene. Thank you. Much appreciated. Sing the song and play the St. Patrick Battalion by David Rovix. That I can do too. That's a little bit more of a serious song. Whereas, the 23rd of June is more about relaxing, but we can play the St. Patrick Battalion by David Rovix. That's fine. Gabby says, have you seen this craze on Nidos? I have American consumerism. What is it like? What is that? I don't even know what that is, Gabby. But we're going to find out. I'm going to go click on your link. I hope that this link is safe for work. I hope this link is safe for work, as they say. Hold on. What? All right. This is Squishy Lovers Hunt for Nido. Oh, it's dough. Oh, like Play-Doh kind of, but it's called Nido. All right. Well, we'll put it on. I have not heard of this, but this is good, right? We're getting hip with the kids these days, right? We got to be down with the kids. We got to say 6-7 and skibbity toilet, and right. We got to be down with the kids. So, you're keeping us up, right? See you later, alligator, and the bee's knees and the cat's pajamas, and I'm just being silly, but it's called Nido. All right. I found Nidos. All right. Here we go. We're downloading this. We're going to find out what this is. We found Nidos. All right. Nidos. All right. Squishy Lovers Hunt for Nidos. All right. We're going to put it on. I have no idea what this is, but it does look like American consumerism, but we're going to find out what it is.
The line is all the way to the back, all the way at the door over there.
This is all we got today.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have hacked the Nido hunt.
Employee explaining the rules.
Will be sold the needles.
Yes, okay.
It's 4 total, and then nobody under the age.
Yeah, you know what immediately comes to my mind? I guess I'm an old man. I remember Tickle Me Elmo. And it seemed like that was something that would happen every few years, was there would be like a toy that would come out around Christmas time. They wouldn't make very many of it. And then they would announce there's a shortage of this toy. And the toy would be very expensive, and they'd do news stories about it. And there was like one year it was Tickle Me Elmo, and I don't know why, but it was just all over the news. Oh, every kid wants a Tickle Me Elmo, and the Tickle Me Elmos are rare. No one can find one. And it's like, you know, I mean, if everyone really wanted a Tickle Me Elmo, why didn't they just make more of it? It was weird. Also, for a while there was a thing with the bean babies, right? That's really dating me. I'm really old. That was the thing, is for a while, you know, beanie babies, right? With these little like you know, like stuffed animal things that they made, and like McDonald's was giving out little toy beanie babies with their kids' meals. And I don't know, it was just a weird, like they would create like a toy, and they would announce that it was rare, and it was like you had to, you know, this toy was rare, and people were all over the place, and it was very dumb consumerism, extremely dumb consumerism. Yeah, and it's like, you know, I mean, I mean, the thing is, like, what is so special about that, right? It was a stress cube thing. Okay, so what's special about it, right? Right? Like, I mean, you know, if you don't get I mean, there's plenty of like stress ball things out there. So why is it, you know, it's like they decided to make it very popular and to make it like a race to get it. And then there's an element of like competitiveness. Like if you send out the message that something is hard to get, there's a bunch of people who want to get it just because it's hard to get. Right? It's like they wouldn't have wanted it before. When they found out that a bunch of people wanted it and couldn't get it, then they wanted to get one so that they could be ahead of everybody else or something. It's like, you didn't even want this before, you know? So I don't know. It's just, you know, a fear of missing out, FOMO. I don't know what it is, but you know, I don't know. I don't really care. Capitalism. That's a good way of putting it. Right now, nobody has any money, right? I mean, my goodness. I mean, everything costs 10 times what it used to cost. And, you know, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I will admit, I just don't get it. But Gabby sent another question. She said, why does the West glorify gang lifestyles to our kids? It's unfortunate seeing violence, crime, and self-destruction pushed as cool instead of promoting strong families, education, discipline, and positive role models. What happened to uplifting people instead of profiting off dysfunction? Well, you know what the wild thing is, right? I have been told my whole life that Russian President Vladimir Putin is a gangster. He's not. You go to Russia, they don't promote gangster stuff. They promote family values. Whenever I've been in Russian President Vladimir Putin's presence, he seems like a very responsible father of the country. You know, he doesn't give off a gangster vibe. He gives off a wise, fatherly, you know, caring man vibe. And you listen to his rhetoric. He's not saying, oh, I'm going to fuck up a bitch, I'm going to bust a cap in your ass. No, he's saying, you know, I mean, Trump sounds like a gangster. Russian President Vladimir Putin sounds like a responsible leader who, you know, has a lot of wisdom and insight. And I mean, you know, but it's like in mainstream media, they're always trying to put that on Russia. Meanwhile, actually, Trump sounds a lot more like a gangster, you know, and Trump's background is organized crime. There's plenty of organized crime. And Trump, you know, you look at his Twitter, I'm going to wipe out an entire nation. Nobody messes with me. Loyalty. I mean, Trump like really does play up the, you know, the like, he sounds like a mafia don or something, right? You know, I mean, a mafia don, right? You know, I mean, you know, Trump very much leans into the trying to sound like a gangster, and he's kidnapping people and he's murdering people from the sky. Whereas, you know, I mean, you know, Russian President Vladimir Putin doesn't come across that way to me at all. You know, you know, the gangster aesthetic, I have said before, I regret it. There were times in my life where I did think that, you know, the gangster aesthetic was good, or I thought, you know, that's kind of like, you know, when you're a lot of communists think that like, oh, you know, revolutionaries are a lot like gangsters and all that. No, they're not. And I really do think we need to push back against the gangster aesthetic. It doesn't help. The gangster aesthetic, you know, if somebody wrongs me, I'm going to fuck them up. I love bling bling. Look at all my money. all of that is immature, right? A lot of it's just very immature. You know, they talk about really rich people don't feel a need to show off their wealth because they've already got it. I mean, you know, everyone, they don't need to advertise to the world I'm rich and wear gold chains and stuff because they're already rich, right? It's people that aren't rich that feel a need to do that. People that are really high achieving don't feel a need to be boastful. People that are really strong don't need to, you know, take revenge against everyone who wrongs them because, you know, they just, you know, someone hurts them. They say, wow, that's really unfortunate you acted that way, but I'm strong enough. It doesn't bother me. Right. And a lot of what, you know, our culture tells us is, oh, that guy's a tough gangster is actually a sign of immaturity. Right. It's a sign that, you know, he really wants everyone to know he has lots of money. It's a sign that he wants everyone to think he's really, really awesome and he's boastful. He's really, really hurt by somebody who disrespected him. So he's got to, you know, take revenge and all that. And a lot of that is really a sign of emotional immaturity. Yeah. Overcompensating and weakness, right? That a really strong person, someone who's really strong doesn't have to take revenge. Someone who's really rich doesn't have to flaunt their wealth, you know, and that actually if someone can behave more like a civilized adult, that's more of a sign of strength than the way a gangster acts, but it's not as exciting, right? And I think that's why Hollywood and television plays up the gangster thing is because it's exciting, right? It's you know, it makes a good movie, right? If someone is fighting for revenge, if someone's, you know, got loads of money and that I noticed like the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, for example. There's a couple other movies like that I've seen that it's kind of like glorifying criminality in the sense of like criminals have lots of money and criminals, you know, always get what they want. And yeah, I mean, it's a fantasy. I believe like in our decaying culture, a lot of people have a gangster fantasy. You know, and that I do think Trump plays into, you know, and Trump's name is in so many rap songs because he's famous for being rich, right? And that was one thing they pointed out is Trump's name is in many, many rap songs because his name is associated with being rich. That's his whole persona is that he is rich. Right. And that, you know, that Trump, you know, Trump, a lot of people who vote for Trump, it's like they have a fantasy of being Trump. Right. And so a lot of people who like the gangster aesthetic, they're not like that. And they wish they could be. Right. And that's a really common phenomenon. It's not that a lot of times the entertainers that people like are not what they actually want to be themselves. It's what they can't be. Right. Like the political correctness, the rudeness of Trump. It's like there's a lot of people who are walking on eggshells. They want to say the right thing. They don't want to get in trouble. And they wish they could tell their boss how they really feel. They wish they could insult people. And they don't have the courage or the ability to do it. And so they see Trump doing it. And it's like Trump is doing what they wish they could do deep down, but they don't have they're not in a circumstance in life, or they just don't have the courage to do it. And they wish they could insult people the way Trump does, right? There's a lot of that of like, we follow people that are our fantasy, right? Of what I would like to be, right? And that's a weird phenomenon, right? You know, I mean, we follow people who are what we want to be, but will never allow ourselves to be, right? And I feel like if you want to be something, I mean, it's okay to admire people who are what you would like to be, but you should figure out how to be it. You shouldn't be somebody you don't like and then just have this little fantasy in your head of, well, I'm actually going to be a gangster, you know, like, no, if you want to be an architect, figure out a way to go to architecture school. You know, if you want to be a movie star, take some acting classes, move to Hollywood. Like, don't hate yourself and then have an unrealistic fantasy that you kind of worship somebody else to play out. I don't get that. There's a lot of things I don't get. So anyway, all right. Chase sent me a question. Do you think some anti-AI sentiment matches what Karl Marx called petty bourgeois socialism, where a certain class, usually the petty bourgeoisie, opposes technological progress that threatens their class position, rather than the structural contradictions of capitalism tendency, the falling rate of profit? I know Peter Coffin has been talking about this subject recently. I agree with Peter completely. Yeah, well, what he says, he's right on. I mean, on the AI issue, he follows it very closely. He's got brilliant analysis of it. I don't follow that issue very much, But the argument, the way I understand it is there's a couple layers to it. First of all, AI reveals how hard it is to define intellectual property, right? Because AI basically draws from things that already exist in order to do what it does. So then the question is, like, does it then owe those things that already exist? Is it plagiarizing those things? Well, no, it's not, because it's not making the same thing. But it's like, and even a real human being, right? If you're a poster designer and you make posters, you're going to look at posters that already exist to get the idea. Everything that exists is a product of its environment, right? So like for everything that exists, there is something like it that came before that is like it but different. And all art is influenced by previous art. And so that AI kind of exposes that, because it's like they say, well, AI is plagiarizing. Well, not in any, not, it's like, is Digimon plagiarizing Pokemon? No, it's a completely different story. They both end in mon. They both involve monsters. They're both a Japanese cartoon, but they're completely different, right? But you could say that, would there be Digimon without Pokemon? No. But is Digimon the same as Pokemon? No, they're not the same thing, but one inspired the other. And so there's the issue that the plagiarism thing is, it's like AI is not literally copying other people's art, but it's using a machine to like absorb other people's art and make something new, right? So there's that. The other thing, though, is it's kind of just the issue with technology, right? It's just that, it's like you can't stop technological progress. The issue is not technological progress. Technological progress is good. The issue is we have a system where people's only value is their ability to sell themselves to a boss, where less human labor power being involved in production leads to unemployment and the falling rate of profit. And, it's the problems of capitalism. It's not the idea. The idea is not, the problem is not simply, is not, oh, this technology is bad, right? And when you oppose technological progress, that's not petty bourgeois socialism as I understand it. I mean, maybe that was part of it. But my understanding is that was Ludditism, the Luddites, right? The machine breakers, right? That was a tendency that developed in the, of the people that burned looms, that were, in the early stages of industrialization in Britain. You had followers of they were called the Luddites, and they were an anti-technology group, the Luddites. And in the 1800s, they went around destroying technology because they thought technology was bad, right? Ned Ludd, or Ludd, right? And you read about the Luddite movement. They were just an anti-technology group, and that's fundamentally a reactionary trend, right? This idea that that we need to just get rid of the machine breaker tendency. Well, the problem isn't the machines. The problem is profits in command. We're not against machines, and we want technological advancement. We just want a society where that doesn't lead to unemployment. We want society to control the means of production so that wealth and abundance is available for all. And that if you start, and then the other thing is that this kind of anti-technology thing is always a losing battle. If you can do it with AI, it's going to happen. Right. And you can say, well, we'll pass a law that AI is not allowed to do this. Oh, good luck enforcing that. Right. There's no dark web. It's like once AI can do something, AI is going to do it. Right. And you can say, well, we're going to pass a law that AI is not. No, they will. That's not how technology works. Right. You can't hold back technology with legislation. You can't do that. You can't, right? Now, there's monopolistic maneuvers that sometimes are able to temporarily hold off technological progress, but that even doesn't work for very long. The idea, so it's like, okay, so it's like in order to save the economy, we're going to make a rule that AI cannot do certain things. People are going to use it for that. And there's going to be a dark web computer program that people use. You can't do it, right? So yeah, that's the issue there. And that the anti-AI movement, I will say though that, when people talk about AI slop, right, there is something to that, which is that if you use AI in a lazy way, you get a bad product, right? And that's true, right? That you can use AI as a tool, but if you use it in a lazy way, you do get a bad product that people say that's AI. right? And they're not really saying that's AI. They're saying that's lazy, right? And that's a fair critique, right? That in order to make AI do a good job, you have to be creative, right? AI is not really that creative on its own, right? In order for AI work to, work that utilizes AI to be good, a human has to actually smack the AI around. And that's so true. I mean, if you don't smack the AI around, and if you don't make it and demand it, no, do it this way, no, do it this way, right? Like if I have AI design a poster or something, like in order for that poster to be really good, I have to make the AI make it like 15 times, right? To make it do well. I have to put my own soul as a human into it. And if people, they just put one prompt into it, all right, do this. Nope, I did it. See, it's all done. Well, you're going to get something crappy and people are going to look at that and they're going to say it's AI. In order to make AI do a good job, you have to put your human touch into it. That's a good way of putting it, Gabby. You got to put your human touch in it. If you want AI to do a good job, you need to put your human touch in it, and you need to like force AI to do a good job. There are things that are much easier to do now because of AI, but in order to do them well, you have to like master the AI and force it to do a good job. And sometimes you have to go to war with AI. I mean, every so often you'll find something that AI just will not do, right? And I don't know where it's weird. And some of my experiences with AI, there are things where AI it just will not do it. And you got to like get on top of the AI and say, no, I told you I want this poster. I want it this way. Do it, and AI will be like, no, and you have to battle AI sometimes. It's almost like riding a bucking bronco or something. AI doesn't want to do certain things, and it's weird. It's kind of random. I always wonder, why is it? Every so often I find something that AI is like, no, I will not make this poster for you. No, I will not edit this. No, I will not touch this. No. And they won't tell you why. And it's very, very bizarre. And it's very, very bizarre. So Penny sent a video. She said, remember the Chinese balloon. So we'll put that on. And then I've got to sing a song, and then I got to play David Rovick's song, and then I have to say goodnight because I have to get up and do Jamarl Thomas's show tomorrow. Yeah, guys, Jamarl Thomas. I'm doing that show, and then I'm headed out of the country. I work hard, guys. I will say I love the work that I do, and I believe in what I do. But sometimes it's like, whoo. But anyway, here we go.
Talk about the catch of the day. It's the Chinese spy balloon found by the U.S. Navy.
The U.S. Navy coming in with the China balloon.
You can see balloon fabric on the boat deck and boxes being unloaded on the dock. The balloon was discovered off North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Debris from the shoot-down lies scattered across 7 miles.
Some of it's intact. They'll be able to easily determine what it was and what it was used for.
We're learning more about the stunning moment the spy balloon was shot out of the sky.
Break one, splash one. That is a key kill.
We have eyes on the balloon falling.
Hundreds on the ground watch the Top Gun drama unfold.
That plane just had a strike.
The moment of impact was captured by photographer John Snyder.
I walked out to the driveway in the front yard and I was like, oh, hey, there's the balloon.
Minutes after he set up his camera, the missile struck.
I knew I had got the shot. That's basically all it was, being in the right place at the right time.
This extraordinary image shows the payload of solar panels and spy equipment actually falling from the sky. It's the first time an aircraft has been shot down over U.S. territory since World War II. Now the recovered equipment may be an intelligence treasure trove for the U.S.
Our long national nightmare is over.
And just hours later, the historic moment was lampooned on Saturday Night Live.
We popped the balloon.
Yeah, it was a weather balloon. Yeah. Well, there you go. Will China indict America for that? Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Violated our airspace or violated their balloon. Right. All right. Okay. So I have to sing you all the song. I must sing the song. And then I must put on the St. Patrick's Battalion song. So this is the song I was thinking of because it's just a very relaxing Irish song. It was the 23rd of June as I sat weaving upon my loom. It was the 23rd of June as I sat a-weaving upon my loom. I heard a thrush singing in the bush, and the song she sang was the jug of punch, fall-de-dal-de-day. Rackney fall de diddle dully dully dum a diddle dully diddle dully dum dum day. Oh, what more pleasure can a boy desire than sitting down, oh, beside the fire? What more pleasure can a boy desire than sitting down, oh, beside the fire? And in his hand a jug of punch, and on his knee a tidy wench, fall-de-dal-de-day. Rackney fall a diddle da diddle dum a diddle da diddle diddle dum dum day. When I am dead and my drinking's over, or no, when I am dead and left in my mold, at my head and feet place a flowing bowl. When I am dead and left in my mold, at my head and feet place a flowing bowl. And every young man who passes by, he can have a drink and remember I fall-de-dal-de-day. Rackney fall de diddle da diddle dum a diddle da diddle da dum dum day. When I am dead and my drinking's over, I'll take one drink and I'll drink no more. When I am dead and my drinking's over, I'll take one drink and I'll drink no more. So there you go. Yeah, that is the 23rd of June. It's a very relaxing song about just kind of enjoying yourself in the summertime, right? So there you go. I like that song. It's just very relaxing. So now we're going to put on a much more serious song. It's not about relaxing beside the fire. And we're going to put on, we're going to put on St. Patrick's Battalion. And then, unless anyone has any more questions, we'll end this stream. So, yeah, David Rovick's St. Patrick Battalion song, Patrick Battalion. That's some good stuff. We'll put that on, and then, unless there's any more questions, we'll be done.
My name is John Riley. I'll have your ear only a while. I left my dear home in Ireland. It was death, starvation, or exile. When I got to America, it was my duty to go. Enter the army and slog across Texas to join in the war against Mexico. And it was there in the pueblos and hillsides that I saw the mistake I had made. Part of a conquering army with the morals of a bayonet blade. And there amidst all these poor dying Catholics, screaming children, the burning stench of it all, myself and 200 Irishmen decided to rise to the call. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. March beat the green flag of St. Patrick, emblazoned with Erin Golbra, bright with the harp and the shamrock, and Libertad por Republica. Just 50 years after Wolf Tone, 5,000 miles away, the Yanks called us a legion of strangers, and they can talk as they may. But from Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. We fought them in Matamoros, where their volunteers were raping the nuns. In Monterrey and Cerro Gordo, we fought on as Ireland's sons. We were the red-headed fighters for freedom amidst these brown-skinned women and men. Side by side, we fought against tyranny, and I dare say we'd do it again. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied, so we formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. Churubusco was the last. Overwhelmed by the cannons from Boston, we fell after each mortar blast. Most of us died on that hillside at the service of the Mexican state. So far from our occupied homeland, we were heroes and victims of fate. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied, so we formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied, so we formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion, and we fought on the Mexican side.
All righty. Well, thank you, everyone. It's been a great stream. Tune into Jamarl Thomas tomorrow morning early. I'll be on. Yeah, and I guess if you're coming to the rally in Grand Rapids, I'll see you there. All right, everybody. We'll be back. We'll be back probably tomorrow night. I'll be on tomorrow with Jamarl Thomas. Here we go. New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. While the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.